The number one diagnosis for men as they're getting older is overactive bladder.
Yeah.
So how often are you going to the bathroom? How often are you waking up at night to go to the bathroom?
Oh, freaking all. Well, okay. So let me tell you this. Hold on, wait. Sorry, I don't want to make this podcast enough of me, but like at one point, I was waking up sometimes 4 times a night.
So
4 or 5 times a night.
yeah, you shouldn't be waking. You're not old enough to be waking up at all. Once
Yeah.
you get over the age of 65, they technically say you can wake up once a night. I still don't personally like that,
Yeah.
but that's
So how do I fix it? I'm asking the question because I got a problem.
yeah.
This is Secrets for Success.
Welcome to the Secrets for Success podcast. I'm your host, Greg Todd. Thank you, as always, my friends, for joining me. If you have not heard the interview that I did with Michelle Weeks, we recently did an interview and it was epic. She has an amazing story, amazing practitioner, an amazing entrepreneur, and just a cool chick, y'all. She is just cool. And Michelle, thank you so much for being on the podcast again.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you being here. This episode is going to be a rapid fire of value, okay? We know that you treat pelvic health conditions, right?
Yeah.
And you treat them in such a vast way because you're not just a pelvic health therapist, you are a practice owner of 4 clinics in a multidisciplinary approach. So that's why I'm going to make you answer all these questions because you know a lot, all right? You scared because you don't know what I'm going to ask you. Okay. All right. So question number 1, I really want this, like I know I have a pretty wide audience and I know many of them are either females that have pelvic health issues or they are pelvic health, therapists. So I would love for people just to kind of hear your take on these things. All right. Is that cool? All right. So the first question was, what are some of the, or at least for you, the most effective treatments that you are using at your clinic for pelvic health dysfunctions?
Yeah, absolutely. So generally when people come in, they have, it really could be acute or chronic, right, issue. So something they've been dealing with for a while or a short period of time. And so we really want to first develop and find the root cause of what's going on.
Good.
Because if we just treat your symptoms, we could be missing really what actually is happening and what is driving that.
Okay.
So we use a lot of hands-on manual techniques to help us to determine really that root cause of what's going on in your system.
And that's from the get-go.
And that's from the get-go. That's from day one.
Yeah, got you.
And then we just treat what we're finding and what that root cause is and progress. We're able to progress people through their levels of care.
Gotcha. Okay. So you just said something where you're like, a lot of times if you don't find that main source of where the issue is, this can turn into a long-lasting issue, right?
Yes.
And so you focus on getting to the root problem from the get-go. Okay, I like that. So now my question is, how can you find lasting relief from pelvic pain that's affecting people's daily life?
Yeah.
So how do you find the lasting relief?
So number 1, find that root cause.
Right.
Number 2, we want to start to treat that.
Okay.
So get that initial symptom reduction. Once your symptoms have improved, game's not over. You're not done with therapy. And I think that's where a lot of people stop.
That's right there is huge.
Because after, 3 to 4 visits, they're like, yeah, my symptoms are gone. I'm better. Well, you actually haven't worked through the rest of that rehab protocol that you need in order to get that lasting change.
Right.
So we need to continue to address what those underlying reasons were that the problem started in the first place.
Right.
So we need to strengthen that tissue. We need to make sure that everything is coordinated well, that it can stand up to whatever you want to do in life. So if that's running or jumping or, just playing with your kids, whatever that may be, we want to make sure that we're getting you all the way up to that level without symptoms. And that takes time.
Right. I'm not a pelvic health therapist, nor do I play one on TV, but I do work with Michelle and I have seen her build out a framework showing these different levels. And in the framework, it shows when you reach a certain level, even though the symptoms will more than likely go away, you will not achieve long-lasting relief unless you start to address the next levels, and then you can feel pretty rest assured if you complete those next 2 levels that the symptoms not only will go away, but they'll stay away.
Exactly.
I think that is so huge. And I really think on a whole, even though I'm not in the pelvic health space, as a physical therapist, I have seen this way too often not done properly. And then clients have a bad depiction of if physical therapy actually works, or pelvic health therapy services really work, because they're like, yeah, I did feel good when I was doing it, but then it all came back.
Yeah. So it
hence
didn't
it
work.
must not work.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So here's my next question to you, and I feel like only you can answer this. What makes a comprehensive and collaborative approach different from other treatments?
Absolutely. Great question. So most other clinics you go to, pelvic health, orthopedic, they're really looking at what's going on structurally with your body.
Right.
And we're not just our body. You know what I mean? Like, we can't work in isolation. And so oftentimes there is a nutrition component to that. So if we've got increased inflammation that's in our system, you know, even if our shoulder hurts but we're also having some digestive issues, there's probably something going on with our gut health that we need to address as well to get that overall inflammation down in your system to get you feeling better, completely better.
Right. Gotcha. That is huge. And most clinics don't have a solution for that.
Yeah.
Because all they do is that one thing. And yours, you do. Explain it. Explain to people that work there. The different types of people that you have.
So we have our therapy team. So that's made up of physical and occupational therapists. And so they are specializing in pelvic health, orthopedics. We use dry needling, other manual therapy techniques that are really effective and unique to our practice. And then we have 2 functional registered dietitians. So that's even different from your standard registered dietitian, because I feel like you could do a whole other, and I'm sure you've talked to lots of registered dietitians on your podcast, you know. So there's some people that are just talking about like, oh, you need to count your macros or eat, you know, X, Y, and Z food. We're really digging deeper. So we're looking at, you know, any lab values. We're you know, ordering additional testing to really dig deep under what's going on, especially for people that have more chronic conditions.
Right. Gotcha.
It's not simple.
Gotcha. Yeah.
If it was simple, it wouldn't be chronic and it would be better, right?
Right.
And so we're really going to dig deep in that investigative process from that functional registered dietitian perspective and see how we can help to support and heal their system, which is also then going to help them from the physical aspect as well. And then we also have psychiatry services. So we have a psychiatrist that specializes in prenatal, pregnancy, and postpartum psychiatry, amongst other things. And so adding that in too, because we know we're not just our body, but our mind and our mental health are so important on how our nervous system is functioning. And if, you know, something is off with that, if we have more anxiety or more depression, that really is going to impact how we're feeling physically as well. And so we are really trying to address the entire person.
Most pelvic health therapists that I have worked with over the years really have a desire to have what it is that you have created. From whatever reason, they haven't been able to pull it off. You have. So I'm saying that because if anybody is listening and is looking for that multidisciplinary approach, that collaborative approach, I would highly recommend. I'm not trying to do this as a pitch for your stuff, but I'm just telling the truth. And you guys know, if I like it, I'm selling it. Okay. But I think that's really awesome what you've done. And from what I understand, your people, for the most part, they can do virtual visits as well.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So that's really, really cool. Okay. So anyways, hint, my friends. Okay. So now let's get into some of the nitty gritty now. I'm assuming you help people with bladder problems, with bowel problems. What are some ways for people to be able to regain control? Because like I'm a dude and apparently we have them problems too.
Yeah, you do.
Y'all don't be talking to us enough.
No. I mean, the number one diagnosis for men as they're getting older is overactive bladder.
Yeah.
So how often are you going to the bathroom? How often are you waking up at night to go to the bathroom?
Oh, freaking well, okay, so let me tell you this. Hold on, wait. Sorry, I don't want to make this podcast another me, but like at one point, I was waking up sometimes 4 times a night,
So
4 or 5 times a night.
yeah, you shouldn't be you're not old enough to be waking up at all. Once
Yeah.
you get over the age of 65, they technically say you can wake up once a night. I still don't personally like that,
Yeah.
but that's,
So how do I fix it? I'm asking the question because I got a problem.
we have to look at what you're eating, what you're drinking.
Okay.
There's certain things that are going to irritate your bladder, and what that means is if you eat or drink certain things, that's going to give you the urge to go more frequently.
Okay.
So making sure that you're limiting those, or you know what they are for you specifically, because
Right.
it's not across the board the same for everybody.
Right.
And then if you know what they are, try to limit those
Right,
in
gotcha.
the evening.
I do think for me, coffee was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I used to have like a lot of caffeinated coffee. I pretty much only drink, you see, I drink decaf mostly, unless things are getting, I'm like, you're like, break, just go have some regular coffee. But for the most part, I only drink decaf. And I've noticed I'm now down to about 1 time a night. So you're still saying at my age, I'm 47.
You should
1
not
time-
be
you
waking
shouldn't
at all.
wake at all.
And then making sure you're not drinking, close to bed. So yeah, so maybe if you're drinking a glass of water before bedtime,
Right.
then
okay.
you should be waking up one time.
Gotcha. There are people out there that are like, look, I've seen therapists before. My previous treatments have not worked. We don't need to bash anybody, but like,
Yeah.
what would you say to them? Like, why should they give you a shot?
Yeah.
And should they?
Yeah, they absolutely should.
Okay.
So oftentimes what I've noticed, I think there's starting to be a shift, but a lot of pelvic floor therapists that have come out recently are very hyper-focused just on the pelvic floor. And so the extent of their treatment is either internal or external pelvis specific. So they are not looking all the way down. It could be something that's going on with your feet that's impacting your pelvic floor. It could be something going on with your jaw, your head, anywhere in between. And so really, if you are going after the source of your symptoms and not stepping back and looking at someone as a whole, you potentially are going to miss what's going on with them.
Right. Okay.
You might get some success because sometimes it truly is a very isolated issue
Yep.
that someone is dealing with. And so, they can definitely have some wins and can do some good for people, but they're not taking, they're not really looking at everything and really making sure that everything has been addressed.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, you have at your practice, because you have this collaborative approach, you address mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk about how do you believe pelvic floor dysfunction affects mental health?
Yeah. So I think it works both ways,
Okay.
honestly. So oftentimes, when we have pelvic floor issues, so if it's leaking, if it's feelings of prolapse, which would be kind of like heaviness in your pelvis or feeling like your organs are falling out, or maybe you have pelvic pain, or for men, erectile dysfunction, things like that, those can really impact your feelings of self-worth.
Right. Yeah.
They're going to impact what activities you're going to participate in.
Right.
So are you not going out as much? Or maybe you have to go to the bathroom every hour, or you're having GI issues and you're having these episodes of diarrhea.
Yeah.
And so you're like, I can't go on a bike ride because I have to make sure that there's a bathroom, every 20 minutes for me to go.
Right.
Or maybe your relationship with your spouse or your partner is affected because you're having painful intercourse, or you're not able to have intercourse.
Right.
And so there's just all of these other ramifications that really over time, if it's creating that isolation and that withdrawal, you are going to be depressed about it. And it is going to lead you down this path that's probably not great.
Well, okay. Of the clients that you see and the clients that you've seen over the years that you've been doing this, how confident do you feel that they can actually be normal again?
Very? 95%?
95%. Okay. That's a hard thing, because when you're going through these things, and most of us, when we're dealing with, I'm not going to say women, I can't talk for them, but even men, a lot of times we don't want to talk about these things. So I'm assuming by default, the majority of men that you're seeing, it's been going on for a long time because we want to suppress it. And so we feel like, well, this is chronic now, when we finally have just said, okay, I need help. But the majority of us feel like, well, I'm never going to feel normal. It might help a little bit,
Yeah.
but you're saying 95%.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that makes us feel good. Thank
Right,
you.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Here's my next question to you. How do I know if I'm a good candidate for the collaborative approach, like what you do, versus the traditional approach, which honestly most like pelvic health therapists do? Like what makes the collaborative approach, or who's that client that should be seeing you?
I mean, I think everyone would benefit from the collaborative
yeah.
approach, honestly, because if we're just addressing one dimension of what's going on, even from a wellness perspective. So maybe a traditional therapist can help you to feel better and get that symptom relief, maybe get back to a little bit of what you're doing. But if you're really looking to feel your best version of yourself,
Right.
like we want to address all of these things just from an overall health and wellness component too. So
Right.
it's not just, can I do X, Y, and Z?
Right. Okay. Let's talk about the pelvic floor now. And, I hear, okay, this person's got a weak pelvic floor, so they're struggling with CrossFit. I hear that they have weak pelvic floor, so I can't run as much, da-da-da-da. How does the pelvic floor, like how does it incorporate with exercise? And what role does it play? And why are people PPing on themselves every single minute?
Yep.
Okay, can you explain that in like a minute?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So really pelvic floor is 1/4 of our core. So I think a lot of people think when you think core, you think your abs, right?
Yeah. Abs, back, hips.
Yeah.
Yeah, pelvic floor, I guess.
So
Okay.
so really pelvic floor, it's like a canister.
Yeah.
So, or your soda can. So
Yeah.
your pelvic floor is the base.
Yep. That's
Your
it.
abs,
That's the floor.
your abs are the front.
Abs
Which are in front. Back,
Back.
your deep back muscles.
Yep.
The top is your diaphragm.
Diaphragm.
Okay. So you don't want to be able to squash your can.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You want it to be able to hold up to an increase in pressure.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
if your can can't hold up to pressure and you push down, it's gonna
Things will drop out.
Things are gonna dry
Yeah,
down.
right,
that
right,
pressure has to go somewhere.
It's gotta go
So it's gonna
somewhere.
go the path of least resistance. So if your pelvic floor is the path of least resistance, you're gonna have a leak. You might develop some prolapse.
Great way of explaining it.
Sometimes if it's your abdomen, you'll develop a hernia, diastasis. I mean, so.
Oh, that's actually really good. Good. I think you've done this before. Okay. All right. This is fantastic. So typical client, how long does it take for pelvic floor treatment?
Yeah. So generally like if we're going for not just feeling better, but really full tissue healing and starting to return to higher level activities, so that's definitely a 3-month period. We can't make tissue heal faster.
Right.
We're not,
Yep.
we're not God.
Right.
We don't.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So I know there's people you'd recommend for most people to see you, or see a professional.
Yeah.
Okay. How about for those that are like, all right, is there anything I can draw on my own? Is there any self-practices, things that we can do if we are struggling with pelvic floor dysfunction? Something you would tell Aunt Tina or Uncle Larry.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, what you doing? Can you help me? Okay.
So the first step is to make sure you're aware of where the heck your pelvic floor is
Right.
and what it is doing.
Okay. So bottom, pelvic floor.
Bottom.
Top,
Diaphragm.
diaphragm. Front, abs, back.
Yeah. So if you are going to sit here, it's like, so sit with your feet flat on the ground.
Okay.
Take a deep breath that allows your belly and your ribs to expand. And then you want to focus on what do you feel happening at your anus, your perineum. You should, with inhale, feel a downward movement and an expansion. Or if your sits bones, you can feel like your sits bones are separating.
Yep.
Okay, so that means your pelvic floor is lengthening as it should as you inhale.
Okay.
And then as you exhale, your belly should tighten a little bit. Your ribs come back in. Your pelvic floor should raise up. And it's very subtle, so it's
Right.
not a big movement.
Right.
You can speak
Yeah.
to if you felt that. So if, number one, you're feeling that awareness, and then you feel that as you inhale, you get that expansion and that pressure.
Gotcha.
That's good.
Okay.
And then if you exhale and you feel that tightening, you're in good shape. If you feel the reverse, we definitely have a little bit of work to do.
Okay. All right. I think I feel that. I also think I have some work to do.
So we know someone that can help you.
Thank you. Couple other things here. Can I ask you like 3 more? Is
Yeah.
that okay?
Yeah.
What does it mean to have a full tailored plan? When somebody comes in, is the majority of people just seeing the pelvic PT or the OT? Or when you say a tailored plan, is it pretty much everybody's getting nearly everything?
Not always. I
Okay.
mean, it really depends. And so oftentimes what we find is they're coming in for either pelvic PT or OT. That's kind of the service that's drawing them into our clinic. And then we expect to find after the first 2 to 3 to 4 visits, we know that symptoms should be almost resolved or significantly better. So if we're starting to notice kind of on that second or third visit that things are not progressing the way that we would expect them to, then we start to pull, like, what else do we need to kind of draw in?
Gotcha. You just have more tools in a tool.
Exactly. So then, yeah, we definitely then recommend, like, hey, you need to set up an appointment with our dietitian, because really we think it's going to be a big missing piece, and really important in order for you to get to where you want to be.
Okay.
Or it could be the mental health. It really depends on what's going on with that person.
Okay. So we've talked about the dietitian. We've talked about the mental health, the psychiatrist, right? Let's talk about the functional medicine, because I know that that's now starting to be a part of what you all are doing. So what's kind of the approach there? When would the functional medicine person come into play?
Yeah, so that might be people's initial coming into the clinic.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of people are now looking for a different approach to healthcare.
Okay.
And so, they go to they feel a certain way. So maybe they're fatigued, or they just, X, Y, and Z is going on. They don't feel great. They think something is off. They go to their doctor. You get your labs drawn, right? They come back. They're like, oh, no, you're fine. Nothing's wrong. And so then they feel like they've gone to all these doctors, or maybe just one doctor at the time. Maybe they go to a couple. I think they're just told nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. What the functional approach does is it looks at not what's out of range on labs, because that's when we can diagnose a disease, right?
Gotcha.
But it's looking at, okay, so what's actually an optimal range? So we want to catch things. We want to catch, so 5.7 for an A1C is pre-diabetic.
Right.
We like it to be 5 or below. So if you come in and your labs say that you're at 5.6, your primary care physician's like, oh, you're good to go.
Right. And that's not where
You're
right.
0.1 away from pre-diabetes, where then they're going to all of a sudden, have a completely different conversation with you. So we want to start looking at the trends in your lab work and your symptoms, and again, figure out what that root cause is. So our functional medicine doctor then works really close with our registered dietitians, and then also with any physical therapy kind of needs that they may have too.
It just sounds like the right approach. It sounds like at some point we're going to figure this out with the team that you have, right? Like that. I kind of love this. I have 2 daughters, and obviously my wife. Painful periods.
Yes.
So pelvic floor dysfunction, painful periods. I know too much about this. Okay.
No, it's great.
No. What is the correlation? Is this a hormonal thing? Is this a pelvic floor dysfunction thing? Is it both?
Both. So it's definitely both. So a couple of things with painful periods. So we specifically also look at organ level movement. And so oftentimes, our organs are attached to us, right? They're not just floating around.
Right.
So they're attached onto our bones. And so if there's a restriction in one of those attachment points, it can cause pain and dysfunction. So normally what happens, so when women are cycling, their uterus and cervix actually move depending on where it's at in the cycle.
Right.
So imagine, it's supposed to be at the highest level during ovulation, the lowest level at menstruation.
That's true.
So if we've got kind of uterus moving like this, but let's say that it's stuck on this right side, it's not going to be able to move.
Yeah.
That's not, number one, that's not comfortable for your body. So that alone can be a source of painful periods. Now, we don't want to just stop there in our clinic, because even though I have before I had all of these services, I helped a lot of women that had painful periods just from a manual therapy perspective, and a lot of them got better and they were doing great. But knowing now kind of the whole functional nutrition, hormonal piece, we definitely want to dive deeper into that and really looking at what else is going on with their menstrual cycle. That gives us an idea of, do you have too much estrogen in your system or not enough progesterone, and what can we do to help support your system that way instead of just putting people on birth control.
Gotcha. Wow. Man, you're good at this. Like, wow. Okay. Go see her. Okay. Lifestyle changes.
Yes.
What things can people do like immediately to at least get the ball rolling? Because I know there's a lot you guys can do for people, but you're seeing them once, maybe twice a week. There's got to be some other things that are needed to change. What are some of the big recommendations that you're making for a good chunk of your clients?
I think the most important thing for everybody is stress management.
Stress management. Okay.
Like across the board. I mean, who have you met that hasn't been stressed out recently?
Oh, yeah.
So knowing what your stress triggers are, and then knowing personally what helps to reduce stress in your life, and then being intentional about incorporating those things more often.
Okay. 2 more questions for you. There are people right now that are listening that have felt very hopeless in their journey of whatever they're dealing with. What would you say to them?
There is hope.
There is hope.
Don't give up.
Okay.
Keep being an advocate for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. Final question. What steps can I take to be more empowered along my health journey?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think just doing your own research a little bit. I mean, that's kind of a scary way to put it. So it depends on where you're getting your research from. So definitely following, licensed healthcare professionals that are knowledgeable about whatever information that you're looking for. So not necessarily, a random TikTok or Facebook post, because, you got to take some of that with a grain of salt, especially if it's, not somebody that's an expert in that field.
Well, the fact that I did not fully prep you on any of these and you're able to spitball this out tells me that you're pretty good at what you do. Here's what I will do. Below in the description, I don't know where this will be or what platform this will be on, but you'll see ways for you to be able to get in touch with Michelle, her team. She has a clinic in Florida. She is in Massachusetts. You have 2 locations in Massachusetts, a new location in Littleton, Colorado. And she works with people virtually as well. So I highly recommend you all, if you are feeling hopeless, if you are having questions, you're like, enough is enough. I really want to get this checked out. She's got some awesome services. Thank you so much for doing this rapid fire.
Yeah.
You did a really good job.
Thank you.
All right. Later.